Okay, in divine science, in these spiritual laws that we talk about here, in this divine presence, there's only one mind. There's only one consciousness, one truth, one life, one love. And we are all the expressions of that, the individual expressions of that. So there's no room in oneness for something else. You can't have infinity and then some little extra over on the side. Like that doesn't happen. So where does disease come from? Like, okay, if that's true, Lisa, then where's disease come from? Where's all this sickness come from? Where does coronavirus come from? Where does contagion come from? All of that stuff, the ills of man, violence. The suggestion that we are separate from that oneness causes people to buy into that suggestion, that belief, and operate within a belief. So there is this famous case where, and this was back in the 1800s, where cholera was a big epidemic, right? Big epidemic. Someone was told that they were in a bed in a hospital where a cholera patient had died right before them. They contracted cholera and they died. Well, the truth is there was never a cholera patient in that bed. And the fear of the cholera, the fear of death, is what killed the man. This was all scientifically documented. So a big medical experiment. So what does that tell us? And if that happens once, and it's been proven multiple times, but if it's been demonstrated once that it's not the actual physical stuff that is causing the problem, it's the fear of the stuff that's causing the problem. If that's been proven, it's been proven. And we can now look at that science and we can recognize that there's something there that we need to be understanding so that we are not subject to the fear that associates thought, something going on in the body, with disease, sickness, death. So what do we need to do to counteract that? There's a quote in the book I quote all the time, Science and Health, with Key to the Scriptures, by this woman, Mary Baker Eddy, who did all of this research in the scientific law realm back in the 1800s and wrote this book, where she talks about the greatest wrong is but the supposititious opposite of the highest right. What does she mean by supposititious opposite? The supposed opposite, because there can't be anything other than oneness. So it has to be a supposed opposite. There's nothing more than infinity. So the supposed opposite, the greatest supposed opposite, the greatest wrong is but the supposititious opposite of the highest right. So when fear comes creeping in and tries to suggest that there's a reality other than good, that there's something real about it, we get to declare what is true. We get to claim our oneness with the divine, and the falsity of the belief, the illusion, the suggestion that there's something else going on here. You buy the suggestion, you buy the belief, your experience is governed by your belief. So there's great wisdom in declaring the truth in the face of a lie, because the truth always wins. There's no power in evil. The suggestion of power is all over the place. When we claim what's true, we are immune to the false belief of power. It's really important to claim what's true. Here's a little example of it. When I was, my kids were going to school, there was like the parking lot posse where all the moms would stand around, moms and dads actually, would stand around chatting. It was like the parking lot posse, right? After we dropped the kids off, we all kind of had our little social time. Well, there was this one woman who was really struggling with a a cold of some sort, some kind of snuffling, sneezing issue. And I was like going up to give her a hug or doing something. She said, no, I'm really sick. I don't want you to catch anything. And I said, well, I don't believe in that. She goes, what do you mean? And she wasn't a student of metaphysics or these divine laws or anything. I said, well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe that there's a thought of sickness that could be contagious, because I defend myself daily against those suggestions. So I don't believe in that. I'm not sure I went into it that deeply. But I said, what's really interesting to me is that people believe that sickness is contagious in the negative direction, but they don't ever talk about health being contagious in the other direction. Like, that always baffled me. Like, why do people talk about contagion being the sick making the healthy sick instead of the healthy making the sick healthy? It's like, my thought of health is a whole lot more contagious than your thought of sickness. So I don't know. I think I basically just said that. It's like, I believe more firmly in the idea that good is more contagious than sickness. So health is more contagious than sickness. I don't believe in that. And she walked away. Well, like 3 months later, she came back to me and she said, that day when you said that thing to me, she said, I realized when I was driving home that I wasn't sick anymore. I went, huh. It's like, well, there's another incident where I was talking with somebody about, there was somebody who was this chain smoker and she really wanted to quit smoking, and she'd been struggling with it for years. And this was just a friend I'd met sort of recently. I didn't really know her that well. We were just kind of getting to know each other. And we started talking about, she was interested in the Bible. She had studied the Bible as a child. And we started talking about the fact that she wanted to quit smoking. And I said, well, it's really not a part of you. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, the difference between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, like God made man perfect and made man in the image and likeness of God. I said, that's who you are. That second story about the Adam and Eve story, that's the story that if you buy into it, then you have all these problems and all of the intended issues that come along with the belief that you are born a sinner or born less than or somehow separated from God, that you should feel guilty or shame or whatever. So it kind of just very basically went into kind of the difference between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. I said, well, it's just not you. And again, like a couple years later, because I wasn't really connected with her in social circles, we ran into each other and she said, hey, I wanted to tell you something. After that conversation, I had no desire to smoke anymore. I was like, that was the end. It was like, I didn't have another cigarette from that day on. It was like, that's cool. Well, that's what this science does. Once thought is shifted into truth, that's what governs. And if truth is governing your experience, there's no need to have anything else be manifested in your life that doesn't belong in truth. We get to choose what we buy into. We get to choose what we hold in our thought as true about our experience. And if you're not practiced at it, start small. Start with basic ideas that good is more powerful than evil. Let's do it in terms of what you hear everybody talking about, that truth always wins. These are phrases that we hear all the time that have been, in literature forever. It's like the good guys and the bad guys. Truth always wins. Good always wins over evil. Well, that's actually true in the absolute scientific realm of the real. That is true. I was listening to a conversation with Deepak Chopra the other day. This was like a conversation he had back in 1993. This is a while ago. And he was talking about how science has proven that when thought is going in a certain direction, when your thought is stable and calm and not stressed, that your body chemistry, what goes on in your body, your physical body, the chemicals change. The chemistry of your body actually changes based on where your thought is. Well, what we know in metaphysics is The body is just the manifestation of thought. It's just the manifestation of mortal mind. It's the expression of mortal mind. Well, is there a mortal mind? And then we can get into all the layers of sort of consciousness and what's the absolute and what's the relative and what's the mortal, right? So mortal mind is the belief that there's a mind separate from God. That's mortal mind. It doesn't have reality in the scientific realm of the real. That's not a real thing. The suggestion that there's a mind separate from God and the belief in that is what gets us into all the trouble. So it really makes sense for us to declare there is no mind separate from God. And if you don't like the word God, use a different word. There is no mind separate from the Higgs field, like talk in terms of quantum physics, if that makes it easier. There is no mind separate. There's only one mind. There's another concept where, actually this was the Deepak Chopra conversation as well, where he was talking about spirit, capital S, mind, capital M, the all, that is the space between the thoughts. That's what exists and encompasses all. And the thoughts are those relative, it's in the relative realm, right? The relative between the real and the unreal, where it seems to be a mixture of things, where there's mind and then there's a thought. Well, those thoughts we're dealing with kind of in this realm of the relative. But we can manage the thoughts, and they are governed for us when we ascribe to, that's what the Christ does, right? Truth consciousness. The truth of man is always present in thought, in mind. So we can have our thought, our consciousness, lifted to that reality. The Christ is the divine influence ever present in human consciousness. That's actually a quote from Science and Health. The true idea voicing good, the divine message from God to men, speaking to the human consciousness. That's another quote. So the Christ is that thing, that divine presence, that is uplifting thought, human consciousness, to the reality of the truth about who you are. When those two instances that I shared, the woman with the cold, the woman with the smoking, what shifted? The woman with the cold, did her physical health shift in that instant? It was a result of her thought shifting. She was aware of a new idea. For her, it was new. For me, it was something that I'd understood since I was little. But for her, it was a brand new idea. Her thought completely shifted. She became aware of the truth. The effect of that awareness, of recognizing the truth that already existed, was a complete and utter shift in her body, instantaneously. That's what instantaneous healing looks like. It's a shift in thought. It's an awareness of the truth. It's that light, it's that aha moment, that light going off, that holy instant. That's what Jesus practiced. He saw so clearly the truth of man that in his presence, the exemplification of the Christ, the demonstration of the Christ, so completely he was known as the Christ, the demonstration of the Christ touched thought, and the physical manifestation, the human scene, changed instantaneously. The story of the leper. Jesus is walking around, there's a leper, he says, help me, help me. Jesus has compassion. He says, you're healed. And the leprosy left, gone. Moses, when he was going to speak, didn't know what to do. God said, put your hand in your coat, put it out. It was leprous, put it in, take it out, and it's not. Like instantaneous change of what we're seeing and experiencing in this realm. It's all thought. We have the opportunity, and I feel like I'm being very, very stern today, but we have the opportunity, this amazing opportunity to live our life free from belief. Like that is available to everyone. And the people who don't know it's available walk around in this realm of belief, and their experience is based in their belief. But what's available to us is more than that. What's available to us is the truth of who we are. We don't have to buy into the belief. We can be free. We can have our experience reflect the divine nature of our being. Claim it very firmly and powerfully. People talk about affirmations in the morning. These are the kinds of affirmations we can be stating. I am made in the image and likeness of God. I was created perfect. I have the mind of God. I express one mind. My consciousness is always clear and always truth-filled. Goodness is apparent to me. Health is apparent to me. I express 100% health in my body of thought and therefore in my expression. Any thought that comes to me that is not lined up with the truth of my being, I can reject. And I have the clarity of thought to recognize it as an illusion and discard it. So be happy that you know this and that you have the tools to use and that you can play with it. It's like there's that sense of, well, this is kind of cool. This is a really cool science. And it's scientific. It's law. It's based in the understanding of the reality of what is. It's a law. It's not like, well, it works today, it doesn't work tomorrow. No, it works all the time. It's always in operation. Like, those of you who've been with me for a while, my goofy little trick. Is it still working? And I drop my pen. Yep, still working. Now, obviously, gravity is a relative law, right? But it bespeaks of the divine law, that it's always in operation. It's not personal. Doesn't matter if you're in the right mood. Doesn't matter if you make the right amount of money, or you live in the right place, you're born into the right family, or live the right place. Like, none of that matters. It's not personal. It works for everyone. Doesn't matter what religion you are. Doesn't matter what you study, whether you're like a good person or a bad person. Like, guess what? The Bible says the sun shines on us both. Well, these divine laws operate for everyone. Become conscious of it, and you get to play in that field. You get to play with the good and see, check it out, test it. Don't believe me. Like, don't come sit here and go, oh yeah, go try it. If you have a challenge in your life, claim what is true and allow your thought to shift out of a belief into the truth. Because truth always trumps error. There is no error in truth. I should probably give you solid quotes from this book, but I'm just talking. All right. Spiritual sense has a lot to say. There's a lot about using your spiritual sense in this realm. So if you're seeing error, shift into using your spiritual sense. And let me just see if there's another quick thing that I can share with you. Well, there's this really cool, actually, this is the last thing, and I'll end with this. There's a really cool Bible quote that says, an evil disease cleaveth fast unto him. And just the way that's worded makes it very clear what's going on. The evil disease, there's an idea, evil disease, that like cleaveth fast to him. If we let those thoughts stick in our thinking, we start manifesting them. So when those thoughts come up, reject them forcefully. So last thing I will share, and this is another quote. Casting out evil and fear enables truth to outweigh error. So casting out those thoughts that don't line up with the truth leaves the truth. Truth will outweigh error when you remove fear and evil from thought. So start weeding. Start weeding your garden. Okay, let's bring it in. Okay, I'm going to boil down the whole morning into one thing. There is no fear in love, and perfect love casteth out fear. Every disease is, the root of it is fear. There is no fear in love, and perfect love casteth out fear. And if every disease at its root is based in fear, then the antidote is love. And that's, you know, keep it simple. Keep it simple. All right. This is the last day of our free trial. For those of you who have been visiting, I'm so grateful that you've been here. If you're interested in continuing in October, just go to morningmetaphys.com and sign up. And that's like the newcomer special. So goofy little things like that just make me smile. Anyway, much love to you guys. It is Thursday, so tomorrow, my dear members, bring a question or an idea to share, because Friday we go a little long and we do a little Q&A, a little sharing at the end. So bring either a healing or an inspiration that you'd like to share, or a question, and we'll have some time for that. All right, lots of love, you guys. See you tomorrow.